Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back, and happy New Year, everyone.
So, Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you're having a great day. Hope you had a great, safe night. Be careful out there. It can be crazy on these holidays, especially this one, as far as the bad drivers or people partaking alcohol and driving. So, never drink and drive. And never, never, never.
No, and please understand, if you're traveling today, there's so many people that were up all night doing, they're enjoying the Happy New Year, and they might not be completely sober driving home. So I really encourage you guys, just stay home, be safe, and let everything else pass. It's like the one time a year I call it amateur night, because those that normally don't go out and drink, they're out and drinking, and we know it can get wild and crazy. So be safe.
Cindy says this because her mother was basically this is what she did, was work as a police dispatcher. So she just knew all these dangerous times.
She did. I mean, she would see it over and over, and probably one of the best things that my mom did is tell me these stories that were quite scary, because it made me a little extra paranoid out on the road. And another reason I know these things is because I used to work as a cocktail waitress, and I would, people that really were not supposed to be out drinking would be out drinking, and it was a mess. So just stay home, be safe, and enjoy the start of the new year.
So, let's start off the new year maybe with a ding, as we'll get Cindy to give us a ding to get us harmonized, right? As she grabs her bag of medical tools. I mean, she has tuning forks, which she uses. Each one's calibrated to a different frequency, and we're going to be talking about light, sound, frequency, and the like, and just the stuff that they have to give us, because they have to give us some truth. It's up to us to decipher what is truth and what is not. One of the things that's not is timelines. The timelines are way off. We were just sitting here and we're like, these timelines are so off. Everything that they tell us is so off. This is one of my big focuses for this year, is to try to discover more clarity on the timelines. We try to get things from the guides. Again, this is a human experience. We're temporarily embodied in these vehicles, temporarily. And so it's not our natural state of being. But while we're in here, we're here with the express purpose of learning and understanding things from a different perspective. So yeah, that's going to be one of the main goals. As today we are both fasting. So it's a new year. It's time for a new fast and a new way of looking at things. And, we didn't ring in the new year with a glass of wine or a bottle of beer, or nope, no alcohol. We're totally coming into this year completely sober. As I've shared with you guys, yes, for many years, my favorite way to relax at night would be a glass of wine before bed. Preferably something red, something French or Italian. Yeah, a little bit of a wine snob at one point in time. But it came through around May, early May of 2022, that, man, you got to be on top of your game. Even one drink can lower your guard to the point where, the dark side will use that opportunity to create chaos. So haven't touched anything since May, and have gained much greater clarity, honestly, even with just simply having a glass of wine here or there. It's a big difference, honestly. It's a spiral that now is spiraling continuously, constantly upwards, with no dips down, so to speak. There is a reason why they call it spirits.
Most definitely. So I want to get started today. Today we are going to release some anger, and then I thought we would do some DNA repair. So if that sounds good to you guys, I want you to find a very happy vision in your mind. It can be of yourself a certain time in your life when you were very, very happy. It could be just thinking about a loved one. It could be thinking about one of your favorite pets, but just make sure you're in a happy space. So we're going to do a couple of dings for releasing anger and a couple of dings for DNA repair.
Yes, and so we'll listen to Cindy now.
Take a deep breath. We're going to do the DNA repair next. One more. The next one is silent, but it'll do the repattern on you. So keep that happy thought. One more. You won't hear it, but I'm sure many of you will feel it. Okay, I hope that gets you guys ready for your new year, ready for whatever resolution or happy plan that you made for yourself. Hold that vision and see how it goes.
Yes, and on EEARTS, we've been working on getting playlists up and sorted, and we'll be continuing that, and then we'll work on the same over on Evolutionary, as this year one of the goals, too, is going to be to kind of separate the channels a little bit more, as we have no strikes on Evolutionary, although they turned it down for monetization yet again, as you get to apply each year. But we'll be able to continue on and have each one be a little bit more separate from the other as we get prepared to introduce a third one, which will be, for those family members that don't want anything that is even remotely lowering of vibes into their field of experience, so to speak, meaning like even, again, when we're talking about Tartaria, Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, there are some that don't even want to know parts of this because they want to keep themselves totally in an upward spiral, and that's understandable. Or, going down the giant rabbit hole, talking about the Anunnaki and the Gigi. I think we will also expand that out to other alien races as well, because there's 12 of these that we get to utilize. So there was one that was simply showing Evolutionary to link to Evolutionary, but as far as the different topics, there's a lot here that we go through, and there's really more that we can be specific about too. This is why the next channel that comes out, it's going to be really only mantras, energy, as far as meditation, and we'll include, I think, qigong and stuff like that over there, and also music and sound, because again, what Cindy has gotten from the guides is that our 3D reality is really the product of just a couple things.
Light and sound come together, creates form, and that creates us.
Absolutely. And so we've talked about this many times, and this and everything we're going to show is basically other people's work, but we're going to give you our comment on it. So again, just for those out there that maybe have been a little hard of hearing, not the 99.5% of you guys that watch the channel every day, but for those that come on in and sometimes come back out, this is again not an endorsement of anything. As far as these, we do agree that there is this cycle of these yugas. Absolutely. We're not sold totally on the number of years. again, it feels like it really feels like there's something very, very missing. There's something huge that's missing. And I do totally think, and I guess I would say I feel I know, that the controllers understand the natural cycle of things, and I think they mimic it. And I think maybe even they play with it to degrees for their benefit to keep themselves in their position. And right now they're in a cycle where they are out of sight. The true controllers are out of sight. And so it's as if they're not really there, yet they are there. Absolutely. And they will, make their grand appearance again out in the open unless we can awaken the masses to a new potential, and we basically open up the gate to the, where all that herd, cattle, flock, whatever term we want to use is, and let them escape, help them to escape, help humanity to escape, help the earth to escape, before they come back. Because again, they have this very short window of time that they are hoping to utilize to, again, do what they want with the herd.
I know, and so many of our loved ones don't even realize that they would want to escape because, the farmer keeps them comfortable, they keep them fed. There's really no worries, but they have no clue that they're on their way to somebody's dinner plate, which is horrible, and that's something that we do know. And these other entities that feed off human anger, human fear, it's called loosh. So, yes, that's going to one of their dinner plates.
Yeah, and this is opening up a totally different line of thinking. And as I'm feeling really cold energy, are you feeling that? Yeah, there's definitely something listening intently to us as we give this out. So if you are subscribed to Gaia, for instance, if you've ever heard of Matthias de Stefano, he, again, is somebody that he himself doesn't feel like a bad person. But again, the power structure in place right now is such that they are giving us a level of truth, and always with a lie, a deception that will be to their benefit. They know that we are going to wake up. They understand that we're going to put all these things together. And this is Matthias de Stefano. And so we recently resubscribed to Gaia just because of some things that were mentioned by family members, and it just felt like, okay, let's see what they're saying now. So he has a series initiation, and in it he gives a certain timeline, which we feel is off. And it talks all about the different races of beings. And, I think, again, it's being told in a controlled manner. And controlled is the word that Cindy used when the guides were commenting on this.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's again, it's not that these are bad people. They're wonderful people with bright light bodies, but they take control of the information and they steer it in a direction that's most advantageous because they need control of our understanding. We are destined to wake up and realize who we are, and they've done so many different things, layering with alchemy to see to it that we are not awakened. And that's what they do. It's very important. So every media outlet, there's going to be a level of controlled information to prevent us from really opening up completely to who we are.
So what it feels like with Gaia is, yes, you're going to get a big chunk of real information. But again, just like our history books, they're being taught by the victors. They're being taught by those that are, even though these individuals want to do the right things, their hearts are in the right place, they want to share. they're being controlled. And they're not going to be allowed to tell every little perfect nuance. You can't talk about that. No, we can't give that out at this time. That type of thing. And so, there's a lot of different levels of control out there to the story that is ongoing. And so, there is a book called The Holy Science by Sri Yugaswar, and you could go into that and, delve. It's really fascinating. It's all about where our solar system is in this cycle of the Yugas. So we do agree that absolutely the cycle of the Yugas is a real thing. And if you go and you look out, like if you look at Sri Yugaswar's diagram, again, 24,000 year complete cycle, and you look at classic Vedic literature, which is talking millions of years, millions and millions of years, they don't jive. Well, of course they don't jive because, again, the control grid locks down all this information. And the fact of the matter is, again, as is alluded to on Gaia and, with people like Matthias de Stefano again, there's a war going on. This war's never ended. It's still going on. These where we find ourselves is behind enemy lines. And even though it certainly is not peaceful here, we don't have that battle going on right over our heads that we can see all the time. There is evidence, and some of these fireballs that you see coming down, and many of them are ships, and some of the quote-unquote meteors that hit are actually ships that are destroyed coming on down. And so, check out other sites, do a little investigating. I do feel that when we go into the Vedic way of looking at things, a lot of this, again, is going to give us some of the clearest info on what's really going on in these yugas, as these are different ages. And really, it's only when we're in the golden age, which thankfully is the longest of the yugas, that there's really a time of real peace. Even in the silver age, we get the infiltration by these groups like the ones that we would call the Anunnaki start to intrude, start to infiltrate. So we view that Earth in a golden age is 5D and basically 4D in the silver and bronze, and it could be that a little bit of the bronze is in 3D, so to speak, but the Kali Yuga is a 3D reality, and then we start climbing up. So we're going back into these times of direct conflict over our heads, the wars of the gods. Nostradamus spoke of that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, one of the things, his clearest words that I always hear is the gods shall have a great war, and there'll be, a great war in the sky, and talking about their machinery and equipment. And these are things that are so far advanced. They are definitely cloaked, but they are up there.
Yeah, and as I was talking about different topics and playlists, there's an entire one that could be dedicated just to Vimanas and everything there. The Vimanas are the aerial vehicles of different extraterrestrials. So when we're talking about these gods, we're really just talking about extraterrestrials. These are extraterrestrials. I mean, these are beings that did not evolve for the most part on Earth. Yeah, there are some inner Earth beings that did evolve on Earth that we don't see every day, but are here. They're here. And some things that we see are inner Earth vehicles. Absolutely. There's a lot of life forms here. And, we do understand that, especially when we're in, I do feel that when we're fully into the Bronze and Silver Age, I mean, it's just like an intergalactic way station is the open, obvious thing. It's just like the cantina scene in Star Wars, so to speak, with all the different beings that are here. Last night, after mantras, I was getting all sorts of visions of very interesting beings, absolutely, that have existed in North America. And so when we look back and we saw the beings like here, I was seeing very much beings like this, the blue-skinned people. And we do feel that's connected to Lemuria. You might wonder about, of course, why do we have different races on Earth and everything? Well, that's because, there's many humanoid species. As you're looking at a depiction of Hanuman back here, who is, some have equated him with a Bigfoot type of being. There's many different humanoid species out there. And from the Vedic literature, we actually get that there's hundreds of thousands of known humanoid species. And that's just a known fact during the Bronze and the Silver Age. We understand that. Many come here. Many have been coming here now. It's more than just the Greys, those that we call the Igigi, the Anunnaki. It's more than Pleiadians, more than Arcturians. There's so many different species out there. You can't keep track of them. And so when we look to this, light and information, because we were talking about light and sound. And again, our 3D reality being created by let there be light, and then, and God spoke, right? So there you go. That's your reality. It comes in. And it's all about intent, too, as there was a creator of this universe. This universe does have a creator. So creationism is right, in a way. And then at the same time, there is an evolutionary process that is also part of the creation, part of the programming of this particular matrix, the natural matrix, not the control grid of the controllers. There's two different ways, or two different systems in play. There's the natural and then the artificial. Oh boy, there's so much here. So, again, light is information. And right now we are getting light from the cosmos and the sun that is awakening and changing our DNA. DNA is just, it's part of our programming. It is. DNA is programming. It's a programming language.
When we look at our physical bodies in this very, very dense form, and you look at the sun, they're both made out of plasma. We are made out of source material, 100%. So wouldn't it only make sense when you're out in the sun, wouldn't that be renewing and helping your entire body? And what I've seen lately is a lot of light therapies are coming online, and they are very, very useful. Although I feel the sun is the absolute best to help heal your body, you can use these other lights that they have coming up, and they can do amazing things. Age regeneration. I mean, it's just incredible the amount of things you can do with light.
Yeah, and frequencies. Again, frequencies heal. Light heals. All that whole push to lather on sunscreen everywhere, be afraid of the sun. And sure, there's tons of people that have gotten skin cancer over the years, but there's so much stuff in our environment that causes cancer in the first place. The sunscreen itself, in many cases, is a cancer-causing agent. And then, of course, the foods we eat, the GMO foods, the poisoned water that we're always drinking, all these things cause cancer. The fact that, we're eating things that we don't eat when we're in a golden age that will lead to deterioration of our DNA, a quickening of the deterioration of the telomeres, and faster aging. All this leads to more increased cases of cancer. It doesn't mean that the sun itself is the causative agent in the cancer. It's the environment. Why, if you go and say, look at Aboriginals living in the Amazon rainforest, or tribesmen living in Africa, they're exposed to the sun all day, every day. They're fine. Where's their cancers? And not to say they can't get cancer, but I bet you anything you'll find much more cancer in cities with all the pollution, with all the 5G, with all the frequency, with all the Wi-Fi, with all the cell phones. Where was all the skin cancer with the indigenous Native Americans, quote unquote, all over the plains, riding horseback all day with nothing covering them. Well, it's in the genes, you might say. Well, perhaps, yeah. And some of that will also get to the fact that there are many beings that are not from here, and they also are not used to this environment. And I don't think that they've been here as long as they let us think in some ways. So, and also they can't tolerate exposure to the sun like we can, because they're also infected with this AI nanomaterial. And very much when we look to our legends and looking at this diagram again, if we go back to the different yugas, in both the Greek world, in the Greek myths and the Vedic traditions, humans are like in a golden age, 30 feet tall, and we live 100,000 years. And it's interesting to see that it's something that's given in more than one culture. As we go into the Silver Age, then we start to get smaller and smaller and smaller. We can look back and see that, there were many creatures that were giant creatures. Yes, there were the dinosaurs, but there were also things like giant sloths, and we had mastodons. I was actually getting visions of blue-skinned humanoid beings that were here in the central U.S., and they were riding on some elephant-looking type creatures. Not exactly elephants, but kind of like elephants, but they seem much larger than what we have today. Again, it's about the light that comes in. It's about the environment, because in these other ages, we're not given water, air, and food that is purposely, basically aging us prematurely, causing disease and causing cancer. It's in the Dark Age that this happens. And it also does happen in the Bronze Age, as the Bronze Age is one of conflict, outright conflict in many cases, a war between, you could say, the forces of light and the forces of darkness, so to speak. And as I was alluding to, there are beings that don't like the intensity of light that we would like, per se. I mean, I love a beautiful shining sun in the sky with no clouds. Many have even said, do you think that they're terraforming for beings that don't like the sun? Because why is it always, cloudy and gray? Why are they spraying the skies so much? Part of it is, exactly that, because there's going to be more and more that are under the same influence as these true controllers, that dark AI influence that can't tolerate the level of light that beings of light enjoy.
Mm-hmm. And what I find really sad, and I'll use myself as an example because I don't think I can really speak to it any other way, but when I was having a lot of issues with my health, I had no real understanding of alternative medicine. So the only thing I knew to do is to go toward our system that we have. And they will actually prescribe you things and say, if you're taking this, limit your exposure to sunlight. And they can prescribe you things. And then in the literature, it says, don't eat very many leafy greens. I mean, really, what? It's just a crazy, crazy world, but that's the kind of stuff that they do, and they keep us away from our original format as much as possible in every way.
Absolutely. And again, when we look at these cycle of the yugas, we could look at it from this perspective, as you see us more like a sine wave descending down out of the golden, into the silver, into the bronze, into the iron, and then back up. And it's interesting when we perceive things as a sine wave, because there maybe we're starting to get a bigger picture, a much bigger picture on the way things truly are. As we look at the planets that circle the sun, and, again, it's reflective. If you want to know the truth in something, I feel you have to go by that Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without. Because there is a pattern to this reality. The pattern is pretty much staring at us in our face all the time. When we look at this, again, it's kind of like the nucleus, proton, neutron, and each of the planets is like an electron that's going and circling around the core. And of course, an atom itself is almost entirely vacuum. It's really nothing when you get down to it. The actual amount of something that's anything is infinitesimally small. So in reality, yeah, it's all a holographic universe. Even though it feels as real as can be when we're inside it, that's the whole point, and that's the grandeur of this creation, is how real it does feel. So again, think about this in terms of a sine wave, and you have the Earth, and not just the Earth, but the solar system, the entire solar system going through this sine wave. And when it comes down through the central part of that galactic plane there, we're bathed in this energy that has just transformative powers. So really, if we were to visualize it, we would see that it's the sun, and then you have the planets going around the sun, and it going along its path. Now, in reality, our sun is not alone in this. We're actually part of a much bigger system as well. There's more. From what we get, I believe there's 39 planets in our solar system per se, and that's not something that we've definitively gotten. We've only gotten that there is somewhere around 40 is what the guides said. And again, the visible light spectrum is such that we don't see them all the time, but doesn't mean they're not there. And even if we don't see them, that doesn't mean they don't exert a gravitational influence. It doesn't mean that, again, something that is slightly out of our visual ability to perceive it is not having an effect on us. Now, there's something called poltergeists, and that can be translated as noisy ghosts. You can't see them, typically. You can't see them, but sometimes they can move objects. Sometimes they can be really, really disruptive. I mean, we battle them all the time. We have issues that are caused by them constantly. We'll have, things fall and drop, and oh yeah, the dogs will go crazy because, they, especially Sita, can see into the other side very clearly. And also Cindy and I can see in different ways. Cindy will get a clear third eye picture, and a lot of times I'll see energy patterns. But again, they're not typically visible to people, but they can have a physical effect on us. And as we've shared with you, what we see as the moon is really a holographic projection. It's a projection, but there is a moon there. But that moon is 4D, so it's on the same density as the planet Nibiru, which is really more of a ship at this point in time, as the planet itself may not escape this ascent period that we're going to go through. And again, when you decide to become part of this AI Borg, you're not able to climb all the way up, that the rest of humanity can climb all the way up into that 5D perspective, but instead are kind of in, if you look at it like the Buddhist perspective of being trapped on the wheel of karma, and in the cycle of life and death rebirths, 3D and 4D, it's more along those lines. Yeah, there are some beings that have significant knowledge of how the universe works and can manipulate things and affect things on different levels. And that is true as well. Again, they do not teach us the mysteries. We have to go within and try to decipher these mysteries because they don't want us knowing. Obviously, that's how they maintain their control.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I like to use as an example when we're talking about things that are there but we cannot see them, think of the radio. Think of the information that's coming, the information waves that are coming out of that radio. You cannot see them, but they're there. And this information surrounds us in abundance. We simply haven't been taught about it. It's not really that there's a veil there really is no veil. Everything is right here all the time, and you can develop senses so that you can then perceive all of these things that are here all the time.
And so again, when we think about the entire solar system, along with, for instance, other suns traveling together in a sine wave pattern, it starts to resemble DNA. And so we've been taught we have 2 strands of DNA, but there's actually been humans that we know of that have had 3 strands, and now science has even found the 4th strand of DNA. All these things we knew were coming. All these things were actually talked about in the 80s and early 90s, because at that time, people started to talk about, and even before that time, people were starting to talk about entering the photon belt, this area where everything is going to accelerate, rapid change happens. It's kind of like, in some ways, it's like hitting a warp drive, so to speak, on the evolutionary path. And all that is not necessarily functioning, well, much of it will be turned on again. And this is, again, part of why they do all that they do. They are trying to keep their flock. That's the bottom line. They're trying to keep what they view to be their assets. And as we see here, light-guided light, Alan Snyder's team predicted that in a special nonlinear material, an intense beam of light can make another spiral around it, and so direct it. The effect could be exploited in all optical devices. This is just the nature of things. It's an interaction. There's an automatic interaction. It's hard to explain gravity per se, but again, it's the interaction of light and sound, and it does take certain patterns. We can see these patterns all around us. They're all over through nature. The universe is a fractal, and so within the microcosm, we can see the macrocosm. The universe is a mirror of itself. Our consciousness, ourselves, we are a mirror of the universe itself. If you want to explore the universe, you can go within to find that out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. Go within to see yourself. And, so many experiences can be had just by looking for yourself in other beings. I mean, look for yourself in your pets. Look for yourself in your children. And that's just a really interesting experiment to do with consciousness so that we start to understand the oneness of everything.
It's fascinating, too, because we think of ourselves in some way as the pinnacle of everything. And, again, we're having a temporary human experience. It's all about the vehicle. This is the vehicle we're driving, So, again, there's many vehicles we could choose to drive. And, of course, if you're driving a semi, it's going to operate very different than, say, a motorcycle. Obviously, it's going to have a totally different way of operating, moving, etc. Our genetic blueprint consists of 3.42 billion nucleotides packaged in 23 pairs of linear chromosomes. Most mammalian genomes are of comparable size. A mouse's script is 3.45 billion nucleotides. So if you're just looking at numbers, there's more nucleotides in a mouse's genome than there is in ours. Does that mean that a mouse is superior to us or that we're not superior to mouse? No, and it's not really superior. Again, these are just vehicles. They're a way of expressing spirit, so to speak. It's a way of exploring reality. So when I think about that, I think about Ganesh, and Ganesh is depicted as an elephant. And what does he ride on? He rides on a mouse's back. How is that possible? How could an elephant ride on a mouse's back? Well, again, that's something for us to meditate on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of good information out there that gives us something to ponder, gives us something to figure out. And as we ponder these things, we tend to understand ourselves a little bit more.
Yeah, so when we look at our genome, there was this line of thought that there's junk DNA. The junk DNA doesn't do anything. They don't understand, what it is. And, gosh, why do we have so much junk DNA? Some scientists have said it's more than 90% of our genome is quote-unquote junk DNA, non-functional. But again, it's just waiting to express itself. It's waiting to be restored. It's waiting to come online. And what will it do? Well, it'll change the reality of those that are inside vehicles like this. You're going to have all new abilities. New research debunks human chromosome fusion. This is what we find out there when we look at why do we have our 46 and chimps have 48. Why would they have more than humans as far as chromosomes? Again, if you're just looking at numbers, you might think that 48 is superior to 46, but what there is there appears to be two small ape-like chromosomes that have joined in the past. Now, this, according to many scientists, does not look natural. Now, if you go back and you look at articles within the last 10 years, they're trying to say this was a natural fusion, but again, it's all that revisionist history. And I do intend on looking a little bit deeper into exactly what those two chromosomes are. We do know what about chromosome 2, human chromosome 2. And again, it's interesting too, when the split came before Denisovans, before Neanderthals. So what this feels like to me is that, yes, Neanderthals and Denisovans were already genetically played with, genetically modified. And what's going on now, again, we've already been told we're in the last generation or two of Homo sapiens. Just like Denisovans and Neanderthals are no more, Homo sapiens will be no more. Now, of course, the members of the few and the controlling group, they have their vision and they'll tell you it's superior, but the reality is it's inferior to what nature has planned. Because this is, in so many ways, an extraterrestrial, interdimensional, alien invasion of the body snatchers, basically bringing people into the Borg collective. And it comes at a massive, massive cost. It is something to be avoided at all costs, because they will sell you on this. They will sell you on this. The singularity. Ken Wilber has written a book called The Singularity a long time ago, talking about the merger of man and machine. Absolutely, it is a complete trap. A complete trap.
They're just changing everything at the very base level for themselves. And this is where we talk about remaining organic versus having everything changed to fit the frequency and the information that they want it to fit. No, the more you're able to stay organic with the mother, the more she's going to be able to take care of you and heal you.
So here you see, in other words, this fusion seems to be an ancient one, predating our species by several 100,000 years. Present estimates of the last common ancestor between humans and Neanderthals, Denisovans, range at about 800,000 years ago. It feels like that is way off, way off. And in fact, it's much closer than that, much closer than that. And again, who controls the science? It's the controllers. The controllers control the science. So when we're looking at even things like, we have the ice core records. Okay, who's looking at those ice cores? Who is really looking at those ice cores? And who pays their bills? Who gives them funding? How do we know? How do we trust them? Because, again, trusting the science is trusting the controllers. All of it. This is why we need to work on developing our own discernment. Wade through all this. We don't trust any of these articles. No, we don't trust any of it. But we do trust our own intuition, and we do trust what we get from our guides. Cancer researchers discover new salivary gland. Yeah, and this here, there's several different takes. Here is why the discovery of a new organ in the throat is significant. Wait a minute. So you're saying humans have developed a new organ that they didn't know was there a little while ago? Yeah, exactly. This article is from 2020. Yeah, new organs. Interestingly enough, in the period between 88 and 92, there was several authors that were starting to talk about, several people that were starting to talk about how as we enter the photon belt, there's going to be an entirely new organ system developing in humans. And we see the reality of that. And again, the whole concept of the photon belt has a Wikipedia thing on it saying it's woo-woo pseudoscience. So when they're saying woo-woo pseudoscience, then you understand that you got some truth there. Because again, who is writing history? Who's rewriting history? The control system's rewriting history. They want to keep you in the dark all the way up to the time when they are culling the herd. And, obviously that's an ongoing process. So yeah, here are new organs in the human throat. And this is from October 21st, 2020. It's not the first one. And in fact, in school, when I was going through school, we learned that, some people had bones in certain places that other people don't. And, this again is alluding to the fact that humans didn't develop organically on Earth from scratch. No, there's been all sorts of interference in the natural progressions of things on Earth.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's beings that know us through and through, and they also know the timelines in which we are going to develop new organs. Isn't it interesting that the plague upon the land, one of the things that was attacked is people's sense of taste? Is it connected? You gotta wonder.
Yeah, meet your interstitium, a newfound organ. This is another one from a couple years before the last one. So yeah, they say, well, maybe it was there the whole time. We just maybe didn't notice it. But yeah, there's a new organ, another new organ. So we are mutating. We are changing. Our DNA is being turned on by the light that is hitting us. Because again, light is encoded information. When you hear people talk about light codes and light keys, that's reality. We are always being given new information. Now, if we are lathering up our skin with all sorts of cancer-causing agents, we are terribly afraid of being out in the sun, cover up at all costs. We can slow the process down. If we eat all the GMO foods, if we go and take all the big pharma, we're going to slow the process down. We might not get all these quote-unquote upgrades, so to speak. This is what they're banking on. They're talking you into keeping yourself in the dark.
These light codes, there's so many, and that just gave me an idea that would be really fun to do. Simply a light coded session when we get maybe our new website come up. So this is fun. It's stimulating, giving me ideas. I like it.
Again, we see that classic double helix, but what about other strands coming online? As we talked about, there was this child, Alfie Clamp, who died young, and he had 3-strand DNA. He was the first, but there's others that have 3-strand DNA, and even 4-strand now, and we're told that we're going up to 12. What's that significance of the 12 tribes of Israel? What's the significance of the 12 houses of the zodiac? Again, everything is an imprint. If you want to understand the macrocosm, look at the microcosm, because they are a reflection of each other. So we know today that man essentially is a being of light. Absolutely. Most of you is a vacuum. There was an author many of you might know, T. Lobsang Rampa, who was an Englishman who went to, I believe it was Tibet or Nepal. I think Tibet, if I remember right. I read his books when I was a teenager, so many, many years ago. I believe his books came out in maybe the 50s or the 40s. But again, it was expounding on Buddhist philosophy, and which at that time to the Western world was, just crazy to conceive of these things. And his guru, his teacher, said to him, Lobsang, why do you look up at the stars and marvel? And he's like, well, master, just look at them all. There's so many of them. Because can you imagine how this night sky looks from the mountains of Tibet? With no light interference, it gotta be just incredible. And he said, you shouldn't marvel at that, because don't you know that if I was to shrink you down to like 1/1,000,000th your size and you looked up at your body, you would see the same thing. You would see that you yourself look like all those individual stars. And that was a big aha moment.
You know, if you've ever gone up, you know, in a place, gone outside in the dark where there's no light pollution, and look up, and you can communicate with these beings, and you can think something, say something, and then watch the reaction. It's very real.
You know, this is Dr. Brenda Fox, who you won't find much about online, because a lot of it's been washed clean. And yeah, boy, when we just look at this one line, the easiest way to mutate our DNA is through a virus. Bam. Bam. There are positive changes going on. Massive positive changes. And the system wants to stop that. Wants to stop it. And so this is going on, talking about the evidence of changes in our DNA. And this is an old article. But it is true. And this is Greg over at N5D. He's in Sarasota, Florida. And he's done a lot of good work on this too. And this article, I'll link to it. And he talks about Alfie Clamp, and he talks about the fact that we're taking an evolutionary leap. Absolutely. And here you see the photon belt, also known as the Golden Nebula. And what it's going to do, again, it's changing everything. And this also gets into the fact that in reality, you know, we are circling around the Alcyon. So we're circling around the central sun in the Pleiades. And again, humans themselves, when we look at the migration that's ongoing on this planet right now, as above, so below. The migration that's going on right now on the planet is a result of the endless wars that are caused by the controllers. They're the ones that create the wars, that create the nonstop migrants and immigration from one place to another. This is what's going on in the galaxy. Because when we look to the Pleiades, you might think humans come from the Pleiades. No, the human immigrants went to the Pleiades as a result of the wars that destroyed entire worlds out there. And again, humans are here for more than one reason as well. When we look at our chromosomes, when the telomeres wear out, then we are no more. That's our timeline. And there are things that affect our telomeres, things that affect our DNA, and the process therein, methylation. And obviously, diet, drugs, pharmaceuticals, environmental chemicals, all sorts of different things can affect us. When we look at cancer, in nature takes care of cancer. Animals know when they get really sick, they don't want food. They stop eating. Why? Well, because then it allows the body to go into autophagy. And the body clears out the cancerous cells itself. But it can't do that while it's still processing new food coming in. Again, in 5D, we don't need to eat. We just simply are able to absorb the prana. And there's actually people, yogis, that can do that in a 3D existence. They're so advanced in their understanding. There's many of them, in fact, that went years, if not decades, without eating. As we have spoken of that in past videos, in even a 3D existence. Totally different when we're in 4D. It gets much, much easier. And in 5D, there's absolutely no need to actually consume foods. Certain individuals can do that even in 3D. So certainly we are moving into that as well. Because again, when we take in certain things, it's going to speed up autoimmune disease. It's going to speed up cancer and other disorders as well. You know, diabetes, when we have the adult onset diabetes, that's all about our lifestyle choices. And the more processed foods you eat, the quicker you're heading to the grave. It's just a fact.
Well, it's slow enough to get you hooked in, but fast enough to really create a serious problem by the time you see the problem, experience the problem, feel the problem. It's been going on for a very, very, very long time. And to heal things naturally, you really have to keep that in mind and have that understanding that, look, it took you a while to get where you're at. It's going to take a while to reverse all of these effects, but that's the great news. It's all fixable.
So you might say, why is our environment polluted? It's because the controllers can't have us living long, healthy lives. That will lead to people that will awaken to everything that's going on. They have to keep us in a shorter lifespan. They have to keep us in a drugged up state. They have to keep us dumbed down and mentally numb. They need us to be as dull as possible. That's what they need. And they've even come out and stated that. There's, was it Rockefeller that made the statement, like, where he said, I don't want intelligent people? I believe that's what he said.
Was that the guy from the Few?
No, I mean, way before that. In the 1920s, 1930s, I do think it was Rockefeller that made that statement. I'll look it up for the next video. So again, if we take care of our bodies, look at it as a literal temple of the Holy Spirit, per se, of God here having a temporary human experience through exercise, clean air, water, soil, no smoking. Again, even things that we are so used to in these dark ages that we might think are normal are also hurting us in some ways. Emotional health is so important for our DNA. Again, meditation, spirituality, and what you take in as well. Yeah, I mean, you might think that hot dog just looks awesome, but that hot dog is all full of stuff that's going to kill you. And it's also going to make it harder for you to sense the life force. It's going to dull your intuition. Same thing with the GMO chips there, and the Dr. Pepper. When I see people, oh man, it almost makes me cry every time I go to the store and I see sometimes people come away with 12 packs of soda, some chips, some hot dogs, and I'm just thinking, I'm just seeing caskets.
I know, all of these things that are so bad for your health, and people they don't really care. They continue on eating them. I think a good thing to do would be to, look up the way they make some of these processed foods and just watch that process. Boy, I think that would be enough for a lot of people to put it down.
Absolutely. So the good news is we can reprogram our own DNA at any time. And again, that's why we stress so much the mantras, because the DNA knows those sounds. And again, creation is latent sound. So when we're doing these mantras and we're resonating these sacred sounds, they are restructuring our body. They are bringing them back into harmony with the original pattern. And, one of the ones that I've been leaning on so much is one that is to Vishnu. And it's interesting to note that every time I'm doing it, all of a sudden it's like somebody's turning the light on in the room when it's pitch dark. All of a sudden my whole mind is just full of light, and it's just wild and buzzing head to toe. And this feeling of positivity is so beautiful. There's many, many good mantras, and we do recommend when people are starting out to start out with the Ganesha one, because it does root and ground you. Ganesha is all about the root chakra. It's said in the Vedic tradition that Ganesha resides in our root chakra. Our chakras are dimensional portals. They are dimensional portals to other realities. So first you want to root and ground yourself, and then, start moving on upward and outward. So I hope you guys got something out of this. We look forward to your comments. Share also thoughts on where you want to go, what things you want to look into more. We love to hear your feedback on all this. as we value you being part of this family.
Source bless and namaste.
Much love. God bless and namaste.